Good to see you, man.
afternoon, everyone. Can I ask you all to take a seat, please? We will be taking the Interagency Commission on School Construction first today, and then we'll go to the State Treasurer, and then we'll do the Department of Commerce. I'm going to start with Laura Hyde, our analyst.
All right, thank you very much. Again, my name is Laura Hyde, and this is the Interagency Commission on School Construction. We're starting on page 1 with the operating budget summary. IAC's fiscal 2023 budget increases by $12.4 million, or 206.8%, to $18.4 million. This is primarily due to a change in the funding source for school safety grant programs from a capital appropriation funded as pay-as-you-go funds in fiscal 22 to a general fund operating appropriation in fiscal 2023. If you look at page 4, which is Exhibit 2 on agency spending, the main expenditure is school safety grant program, which is funded at $13.5 million, or 74% of the budget. The remaining budget is administrative expenditures, with IAC's personnel allowance approximately $4.3 million, or 90% of the administrative allowance, and contractual services are $427,000, or 9% of the administrative budget, and all of our administrative expenses receive less than 1% of this allowance. If you please look at page 5 under the proposed budget. Under the where it goes chart, you can see that the personnel expenses primarily reflect an offset between turnover adjustments and reclassifications. There are other changes, has the public and non-public school safety grants added to the operating budget, and a one-time deficiency allocation of $1.3 million in fiscal 22 for 350 school facilities assessments. If you'll please look at page 6 under personnel. IAC has approximately 34 of 41 positions filled with a vacancy rate of 16.6% compared to 22% at the same time last year. IAC recently hired 8 new employees. 5 employees started in December 2021, and 3 employees started in January 2022. If you'll please look at page 8, Exhibit 4, under milestones for the statewide facilities assessment. Chapter 14 required IAC to contract with a third-party vendor to complete a statewide facilities assessment, coordinate with LEAs to identify data elements for this assessment, and develop standards and procedures to comprehensively update the state's data on the condition of school facilities so that these data were not more than 4 years old. To provide a standardized comparison of building conditions across the state, IAC used a Facility Condition Index, or FCI, to quantify school building attributes and estimate the cost to improve or maintain the physical condition of a building. FCI data were then used in a new tool called the Maryland Condition Index, or MDCI, which uses FCI but also accounts for school building space deficiencies using the Maryland Educational Facilities Sufficiency Standards. In September 2020, the Board of Public Works approved a contract with Bureau Veritas LLC, or BV, for the SFA. In November 2020, BV completed the SFA pilot, and by July 2021, had completed the assessment of all 1,383 school buildings across the state. In September 2021, BV and IAC submitted a draft of the final SFA report, as well as initial assessment data, to be used by the work group on the assessment and funding of school facilities for potential funding decisions. A final report summarizing the results of the assessment is due in February 22. If you please look at page 9, Exhibit 5. This is final recommendations on the assessment of school facilities. Make it a little smaller so you can see it. So as part of Chapter 698 in 2021, the work group was charged with making the following recommendations involved in school construction funding. Revisions to state and local cost share formulas to accommodate changes in Chapters 36 and 55 of 2021, methods to determine gross area baseline and the maximum state construction allocation for each public school construction project approved for state funding, the purpose and implementation of the revolving loan fund, and appropriate incentives for school construction that may reduce the cost per student and total cost of ownership of public school facilities. The work group met 8 times between July and December 2021 to review SFA data and determine possible recommendations. At the final meeting on December 15th, 2021, the work group made final recommendations, which are detailed in this exhibit. If you'll please look at Exhibit 6 on page 11. This is the timeline for use of statewide facility assessment data in funding decisions. Due to concerns about the assessment data raised by the work group, LEAs, and DLS, and an ongoing review of these data by IAC in response to those concerns, the work group was unable to complete the weighting of the MDCI components and other related funding decisions. Instead, the work group offered an additional set of recommendations related to the assessment data, its future use, and a timetable for future funding decisions. Recommended actions prior to the end of calendar 22 includes extending the Healthy School Facilities Fund by 2 years from fiscal 24 to 26, delay use of the assessment data in all funding decisions until May 2026, and an update of regulations involved in the use of SFA data. And Exhibit 6 displays the timetable for implementation of these recommendations. Chapter 14 required IAC to build a cloud-based asset library called the Integrated Master Facility Asset Library that would integrate preventive maintenance and facilities assessment data and allow LEAs to access these data electronically. In February 2020, IAC issued a request for proposal for this project and expected to secure a contractor by September 2020. In November 2020, the original solicitation was terminated before a vendor was selected, but in April 2021, IAC issued an amended RFP and solicited new bids. This solicitation is still active, and IAC expects an award in April 22, with project completion scheduled for September 2023. If you please turn to page 13, which is recommended actions. The first action is language that directs IAC to submit 2 reports to provide the budget committees with timely information on IAC's progress to implement workgroup recommendations. The second action is recognize the intent, as stated in the proposed fiscal 2023 budget, that $3.5 million of the $13.5 million allowance for the school safety grant program is provided to the non-public school security improvement program, which has been authorized and funded since fiscal 19 in the capital or operating budget. This also reinstates language for this program from the fiscal 22 budget bill. The third action is a report on public and non-public school safety grants. And the fourth action on the next page is to delete general fund deficiency appropriation for the school facilities assessments contractor due to the unsatisfactory quality of the assessment data provided to date. This ends my presentation, and I stand for questions.
Any questions for the analyst? Nice job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a panel coming up. Mr. Robert Gorell, Alex Donahue, Arabia Davis, and Ed Casemeyer. Welcome, Senator Casemeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. President, Chair, it's great to be here, fellow committee members. Nice to be back. See some friendly faces. I appreciate your welcome. Just want to make a couple of comments. First, my appointment for this role came in late summer, and I must admit there's a lot to learn about this organization, and I'm trying my best to get there. And my initial impressions are, frankly, the board. It's a great board to work with. It's some very talented people, a couple of people in the construction industry, 2 secretaries are on it, and the rest of the people are very competent and very dedicated people and really want to make the system work. Mr. Gorell and Cassandra Viscara, who is Mr. Gorell's deputy, very respected individuals in their field. I have a great deal of confidence in them, do a good job. I'm most impressed with our staff, do a fantastic job, and you'll hear from a couple of them this morning or this afternoon. Just do excellent work very hard. There's a lot of work being done by a few people. I want to say that fundamentally, I'm viewing my most important role is to maintain and improve communications and relationships with LEAs and the legislature. I want us to be an organization that is looked upon as somebody to help out and not be someone who's a roadblock. And I think that's, in past years, has gotten off course. And, you know, if you all have issues, please call me. I'll look into them, see if we can straighten things out. But, you know, we don't know there's a problem, or you feel there's a problem, you know, we don't know about how to address it. So with that, I'll let Mr. Gorel continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for all of your leadership. And if we know about something, we will absolutely work on it. As we worked with DLS, and they were very thorough. As soon as we recognize that there's something that needs to be looked at, we go directly to that. We don't want to leave anything lingering. I hope in visiting with the LEAs that everybody can attest that we are responsive. We don't let things sit. Sometimes the solution's not as easy as we would like for it to be because buildings are complex. And there's lots of pieces that fit in, not only at a building, but around the buildings. And of course, enrollment is something that changes from time to time. With me are several members of my staff. To my left is Alex Donahue, as Deputy Director of Field Operations. Arabia Davis, who is our Funding Programs Manager, and Cassandra Viscara, who is the Deputy Director of the Financial Operations and Administration. Before we respond to the analysis, we want to tell you a little bit about the things that we're working on at the IAC and in school construction. And Arabia will begin this to kind of recap fiscal year 22 and the construction funding and initiatives that we've been working on. Arabia.
Thank you. Good afternoon. In fiscal year 2022, the IAC approved 91 projects, including 36 major construction projects, 2 kindergarten projects, and 53 systemic projects with a state share of almost $370 million through the Capital Improvement Program, including funding added on through the Enrollment Growth and Relocatable Classroom Program. The IC also allocated an additional $105 million that included $40 million in federal ARPA funding through the Healthy Schools Facility Fund to projects that improve the health of Maryland school facilities. This program funded more than $18 million to correct unreliable or insufficient air conditioning, around $31 million to correct unreliable or insufficient heating, $5 million specifically for temperature regulation, almost $40 million for roof projects, a little more than $1.1 million to address lab remediation. Additional projects for indoor air quality and window replacements were also funded. A survey of the LEAs recently conducted by the IC reported that 98% of public schools in Maryland have air conditioning systems, and this is up from only 78% in 2004. Currently, 21 of 24 school systems report air conditioning in all of their classrooms. Only Baltimore County, Baltimore City, and Garrett have schools remaining. There are currently 27 schools that have classrooms without air conditioning. These LEAs report that within 3 years, the number will be reduced to only 10. 4 are in Baltimore City and are used only as swing space and are planned for disposal. 1 is in Garrett and may not need air conditioning due to the climate in the geographical area. 5 are in Baltimore County, but the vast majority of classrooms in those schools are air conditioned, and the county reports that after 3 years, only 9 classrooms in 5 schools will remain without air conditioning. Now I'll turn it over to Alex to talk about the Built to Learn program. Alex?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. The Built to Learn Act took effect almost a year ago, and the IAC and the Maryland Stadium Authority have been working diligently since that time to implement its requirements. On July 23, 2021, the IAC and MSA approved a program memorandum of understanding as required by the law. Following that MOU, the IAC has been reviewing and approving projects which occur on a rolling basis rather than annually like the IAC's other programs. Including approvals made as recently as last Thursday, The IAC has approved over $700 million in projects for funding through the Built to Learn Act. I also would like to provide a quick update on the statewide facilities assessment. Based on recommendations from the Knott Commission, the 21st Century School Facilities Act of 2018 required the IAC to contract for an assessment of the condition and educational sufficiency of every school facility in Maryland, and then to keep the assessment current, such that the data for any particular school is never more than 4 years old. The initial assessment began in November 2020 and concluded in July 2021. We will start the first annual refresh assessments this year. We believe that we have resolved initial concerns with data accuracy, and we provided an updated data set to DLS on December 21st. We look forward to continuing to work with DLS and stakeholders to quickly address any concerns about the data, and whenever we are notified of any issues, we will act very quickly to address them. We are also developing some guidance for LEAs on how to report critical facilities information for inclusion in the assessment data. And now Cassandra will respond to the DLS recommendations and the budget analysis.
Thank you, and good afternoon. You have received our written testimony, so I won't go through each point that we already have in there. We are happy to provide the reports requested by DLS, and we concur with 3 out of the 4 recommendations that were included in our analysis. The one exception is the recommendation that the deficiency appropriation for FY 2022 facilities assessment be deleted. As Alex mentioned, the IAC is required to keep assessment data current. In order to meet the 4-year requirement in statute, we need to assess approximately 25% of the school facilities each year. Again, I don't want to reiterate what you have in our written testimony, but I do want to emphasize that without this deficiency appropriation, the IAC won't just fail to complete the required number of assessments, but we will also lose out on an opportunity to train our new assessors, which we are working to hire now. They will shadow the contract assessors on the FY22 assessments for data reliability and also for training opportunities. Of course, it would also make it impossible for us to meet the 4-year requirement that is in statute. So we respectfully request that the committee reconsider this recommendation to delete our FY22 deficiency appropriation.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Thank you.
I wanted to make a couple of comments, if I could, Madam Chair, on the assessment integrity. There were certain issues with the information that we provided to DLS. I want to qualify by saying this is a very large task. There are very few vendors that could even begin to do it. We didn't have a large pool to be able to go from. And it's not something that everybody does. This state is leading the way in being able to prioritize the highest need schools that are typically because of growth or degraded conditions, so that there's an opportunity to address those highest needs with blinders on, from wherever they sit, as well as other data that will help in facility management. So it was a big task. And we followed up on DLS did find things. They're good at looking and looking for irregularities. We followed up on everything as we learned it. It was a fast turnaround. But I believe that we supported everything that we were aware of, and at DLS had good reason for their concerns, and we appreciated it, and we're able to make those repairs. Happy to report, though, that it's important to know that these were not issues with the assessment, the direct data. It's how we took the data and tried to turn it into information, the categorization. There was miscategorization, easy to fix. This should have been here rather than there. In a couple hours, we're able to run new reports and go forward. But again, it's a quick turnaround trying to do all this in a compressed schedule. And I apologize, and I know we lost confidence of the integrity in the whole process because of that. But we're there. And if we can continue this and make it go, it will only get better. Because each year, as we refresh the data, now everybody knows what to expect, we'll be able to find those irregularities. And there always will be, whenever you've got 500,000 data points that you're trying to look in schools, and you may not have covered all that everybody wants to have covered. You add these things in, and then you get them the next year. And over time, as a continuous process, this will become even better and better, and the confidence will increase. I'm certain of that. We also know that with the LEA engagement, as Alex had said, where we have a really defined list of things to remind everybody. If you have temperature issues, let us know what rooms those are. What is the temperature issue? That way, this type of an assessment, which is not a forensic assessment, can go and look at the major equipment that is feeding those rooms and be able to put a number there as far as remaining life before that system fails. So it's an interactive process, and I thank you and the members for, Madam Chair, for listening. And we stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? Mr. President, welcome to the committee this afternoon.
Welcome back. No, thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to be here with you and members and Chair. And thank you for letting me intrude on your time here.
Absolutely, you're not intruding.
It's the thing I care the most about, school buildings. You know? Great to see you, Senator. It's always a pleasure. I'm so glad you're there. And I know it is like a wave of information at every given moment. So I'm so thankful you're there to be a point of contact and communication as we move forward in this. I appreciate the presentation. There's a lot of great work happening without any doubt of the massive amounts of school construction that we've engaged upon in the states are probably our biggest capital investment outside of transportation. And so it really, really matters that we get it right. On the assessment, I think that's the deep frustration, and I think the history was relayed. We started this in 2018. It didn't go out until November of 2020, was finished in 21, so it was a 6-month process, 7-month process. There were 2 years intervening before the assessment happened. And then in the testimony, there were last year we provided money for additional people to do assessments. When the school buildings were empty, we weren't doing anything. When everybody was virtual, there was no assessment of the buildings happening, which we asked about at the time, and I guess it had unclear what had happened. And then in the testimony, it says that those personnel are not going to be hired until March of 22, so not until next month, so a full year lost again. And then the data comes back and it's wrong. So it is, the reason this matters is this is supposed to be our template for the future. Back in 2018, this was the database that was going to guide us moving forward for a vast majority of our funding. And all of these problems have continued to mount up. It's hard to have any confidence that this is going to continue in a way that's reliable or valid. And then my question about the data, I'm glad that things are getting improved, but the goal was to get a common dollar amount per school. This school costs this much to fix, this school costs this much to fix. My understanding with how it is presented in the facility replacement index is that if you have a $100 roof over here, same size roof, a $100 roof over here and a $10,000 roof over here, they both need a new roof, but the way that the assessment will rank everything is that because more money was put in before, in maybe an area that has more money overall and has a more expensive roof, as compared to a lower income area with a less expensive roof, they both need a roof, but it will say that the need is greater in the area where the roof was more expensive on the front end because it was maybe a better quality roof put in, even though it's both schools need a roof depending on where they are. And so inherently you bake into the formula this deep inequity that the building cost more at the front end to build, there was more money available. The replacement value is always going to be greater than in an area that's spending less money just to fix up patches. And so you'll just bake in this inequity into this whole formula. So with bad data and bad formula, it's hard to see how we should possibly move forward with this.
Thank you, Mr. President. The way that we calculate FCI is not exactly as you have described. For one, we do look at individual FCI of the individual building systems. And if we're going to compare apples to apples, one roof here to one roof there, the way that we have designed the FCI is so that it is comparable, regardless of what the cost is. So the expensive roof that only has 25% of its life left on it would be an FCI 75%. Oh, I'm sorry, Facility Condition Index. We have two factors. Facility Condition Index, which is purely physical, and then we have the Maryland Condition Index that takes the physical measurement and it adds it to the educational sufficiency measurement and develops a score. Because you can have a brand-new bowling alley and it's not going to work for a school. It's more than just physical condition that matters, and that's why we've developed with the education sufficiency standards this measure of Maryland Condition Index for education. So this expensive roof, if it's 25% good, it's 75% depleted, it has a 75% FCI. Another roof that might be half the cost per square foot or size or anything else, the same. If it's 75% depleted, it will have an FCI of 75%. So it's normalized. There's not a disadvantage to the cost originally of one over the other. We've also tried to normalize so that it doesn't matter where the roof is, how much it costs to repair, because in fact, the assessment does not look at the repair costs. That's what the past assessments have done, is try to put a project price on that are never accurate, they're not comparable. We don't do that. We are looking at the differences of remaining life, that's what the FCI is, and comparing it to like systems remaining life. So we can look at a roof in Garrett County or a roof in Baltimore City or in Montgomery and be able to compare whether one is in worse condition, has less remaining life than another. And we're not just taking the calculated remaining life, which has also been the flaw of previous facility condition index. We definitely consider that, but the professionals that we have look and see how much life is left on this piece of equipment or this roof. And I'll make it just a quick example and bear with me. That the questions that are asked are important, and this is a shift. It's been hard for some of the LEAs to really understand this. Every LEA, you couldn't compare one to the other previously. So if you go to a mechanic, you've got an engine trouble, and you say to the mechanic, boy, should I replace this engine? It's given me all kinds of trouble, and or should I fix it? And he says, I think you ought to replace the car, because this is really expensive. All right, so you've asked a question. The other question that's more important is, do I need to do this today? How much life is left on that engine, so that you can plan to get the best deal, right? And that's what we're doing. We don't put a price on the project. We're looking at the differences so they can be compared. And then once we have differentiated the worst needs from lesser needs, then we can start to plan what the repair will be for that school or for that component within the school.
If you don't mind, Madam Chair, just a quick follow-up. That at the end of the day, the FCI is a lifespan times a dollar amount. Is that not correct?
It is, Mr. President, no, not exactly. We use dollar amounts in order to come up with ratios, but it's the repair cost over the replacement cost, and that's the real basic. But that repair cost, we actually use how much depleted life it is, and then take that percentage and multiply it times the replacement cost. But it's close.
It is not an apples-to-apples comparison if you have a more expensive entity versus the same thing that is a higher value. Okay, but we don't have to get into the details. We can follow up offline on that.
Yes, sir.
On the validity of the contractor that has been selected and that now had data problems and that we are expected to believe is the right vendor moving forward, they had done assessments in other jurisdictions previously, and those assessment results are different under the state's assessment than they were in other jurisdictions' assessments. Same assessors, different results.
Mr. President, because we asked a different question. The questions that were being asked by the assessor before were to tell us dollar amounts that we need to ask for to fix all of these things. And it's a different way of approaching the question. And they're not really comparable. And in fact, as I looked at some of the data of other jurisdictions, for instance, we're talking about FCI, FCI should never be above 100%. But when I've gone and looked at some of those assessments, it is above 100%. So it's generating dollars, but it's not really a good comparison, even from school to school in the same jurisdiction.
Okay, I guess I just,
Mr.
maybe
Chair,
I'm not smart enough, but I don't understand how a sink over here is different than a sink over here. Maybe I just don't understand. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Gurel, and thank you, Senator, and look forward to ongoing conversation.
Mr. Chair, I'd love to do that. Just thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President.
Mr. President, thanks for joining us this afternoon. That was a good conversation. Any other comments from members of the committee? I think what we need is to just continue with some constant communication. I think that would help the whole process, and it'd help us to understand exactly what's happening. So
Thank you,
if we
Madam
could
Chair.
move forward that way, I would appreciate that.
Madam Chair, this is something we're excited of it. We absolutely, we know the importance of this. We want to get it right. And communication is so important because we want to all understand it in the same way. And thank you, Mr. President, for your questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you, members.
Okay, next we have the State Treasurer. Patrick Frank is our analyst.
Okay, I believe I'm plugged in, and I'm not sure what to do next.
Well, let me invite our spanking new treasurer to come up to the table. And Mr. Jonathan Martin and Ms. Sissy Blasi. Okay, Patrick.
Okay, the State Treasurer. The responsibilities of the State Treasurer's Office include an investment division that manages essentially the state's checkbook. It has an insurance division, and it also manages debt and leases. The Treasurer himself sits on a number of boards, including the Board of Public Works, the State Retirement and Pension System Board of Trustees, and chairs the Capital Debt Affordability Committee. So it's a job with broad responsibilities. Quickly go to the budget here. As you can see, it's a fairly steady budget. That's the short version, and most of the money is reimbursable funds, and that has to do with the insurance program. If you look at the spending here, about 12%, which is about 1 out of every $8, is for salaries and wages. The remaining money is for contracts and fixed costs. Fixed costs are the insurance costs for the state's insurance program. And what's interesting here is if you look at the revenues that the Treasurer's Office gets, you can see that about 80% is the insurance program. That's 73% is the coverage that is for the incidents, and 6% is to manage the insurance program. So in a weird way, this is an insurance company that has a broad reach in a number of other areas. This is one way I look at this. There are some spending changes. Most are modest, but the big one is $1 million more for the insurance coverage, and there's an exhibit later in the analysis that explains and shows this very well. Personnel is an issue with respect to the Treasurer's Office. One thing we've noticed is since the pandemic, the vacancy rates have really increased quite a bit. As you can see from this chart here, they're between 15% and 18%, and the most recent months, they've increased even further. If you look at when positions became vacant, most of them are within the last year, as you can see from this exhibit, when these first 3 bars are within the last year. Also took a look at where the vacancies are depending on the kind of a position it is. And what's interesting here too is that the high vacancies are broadly distributed throughout the agency. You can see that the lower grades 10 to 15 are all over 20%, some are approaching 50% now. This is January 1st data, so since then obviously there's been some hires that the Treasurer has made, so this is a bit dated. Now back to the insurance program. Why is it increasing $1 million? I think this chart here shows it very well. The black line is what is the actuarially recommended balance that they should have. Now, what normally happens in these is you tend to miss the target. Sometimes you're a little high, sometimes you're a little low, and then you adjust the premiums, and that I suspect is what's going on there. Also, within the investment division, there's some tracking that happens with that to see whether they're, making a little bit of money off of this. Now, it seems like the first mission of the investment division, I always think to myself, is you want to wake up the next day with at least as much money as you had the day before, because this is the cash flow. Because if you don't wake up with that much, you may not be able to pay your bills. So the second thing you want to do after you woke up is hopefully you made a little bit more. And these are very modest rates, because we're talking generally about short-term rates, which are much lower. One of the strategies to make more money is to essentially do what's like a CD, and that is you take money, and instead of having it in an overnight account, you say, well, I don't need this money for 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. And so you invest it and you get a higher return. Now this, under two conditions, this works very well. If interest rates are flat, then you're earning more money with this strategy. If interest rates are declining, well, then you're doing really well because you're locked into higher rates for longer. But if interest rates increase while this is happening, then, well, you're locked in a little bit longer. Now, so basically, 2 out of 3 years is good in this one. And I think what happens, the way to explain what happened in, if you look at 2019, the red line is the returns for the state, and the blue bars is there's a 90-day U.S. Treasury bill average, which the rates are compared to. And about every decade or so, what happens is there's a year in which the Treasurer's Office has the index is more than the Treasurer's return, and that's generally, I've noticed going back, is in years where the state is coming out of recession, Federal Reserve, or the country really is coming out of recession, Federal Reserve starts raising interest rates, and in general, because I think it's been like, I think about 2010 was the last time before this that we had this similar situation. So this is if I could use a sports analogy for this, is the red line is your team's score, the blue line is the other team's score. And so, you're not going to win every game, but you're going to probably win 9 out of 10 games if you use this strategy. And some games you're going to win big, like 2017, and sometimes you don't. But so I think generally, there are many other things, and it's much more complicated than that. But I think that's a basic explanation of this account. Our recommendation is to concur with the governor's allowance. There is also a local government investment pool, which I have some information on, and there is a major IT project, which, as with a number of other projects, it is moving a little more slowly obviously because of the pandemic. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks and take questions.
Thank you. We're really big on the analogies today.
Sorry.
Mr. Treasurer, welcome to the Senate.
Thank you, Senator King. It's a pleasure being here. I'm used to sitting on the other side, so this is interesting. First of all, I want to thank you and the members of the subcommittee for this opportunity to be here to speak on behalf of the State Treasurer's Office budget. I'd like to introduce Ms. Laura Addis. Laura was actually with me on economic matters, and she's been with me forever, so wherever I go, she has to come with me. And this is Ms. Sissy Blasi. She works in the State Treasurer's Office as well. You referenced Mr. Martin. He was unable to be here with us today. He sends his regrets, okay. But he was going to work closely he's been working closely with Mr. Frank, who I also want to thank for his excellent detailed and considerate analysis of our budget. So thank you, sir. Let me start by saying we concur with both the governor's and DLS's recommendation for our allowance. So I wanted to say that. Also, you have you should have in your briefing materials a more detailed letter from the State Treasurer's Office, as well as our letter to the Legislative Policy Committee that outlines essentially what the office did for calendar year 2021. So I just wanted to use, if I could, briefly this time to just hit on 3 or 4 points that were raised in the analysis. First of all, I want to open by saying I do share the concern of Mr. Frank as it relates to our vacancies. I promise you, it didn't happen when I started. They didn't all go running out the door when I got there.
That's a relief.
Yes. Well, there are a number of reasons, but we've heard about it. It is a national issue that is certainly unique to the Treasurer's Office, but we are aggressively trying to fill those vacancies, as Mr. Frank alluded to. Since the January 1st date, we have made 6 hires. We are close to bringing one more on board, hopefully pretty soon. So we are addressing it. We're attacking it from that standpoint. But it would be remiss of me if I didn't add, and certainly with the unique nature of what the Treasurer's Office does, it's comparable in a lot of ways to things that go on in banking and insurance. Funding is an issue. Salaries is an issue. I won't go into any further detail on that. I'm sure you all are aware of the situation, but trying to stay competitive and fill critical positions. For example, our IT department is without a director and a deputy director. So we're, we have someone on contract, but that's those are the kinds of things that we are facing. But again, I understand it's not unique to the Treasurer's Office. Everyone's trying to deal with a labor shortage, but I did want to bring that to the committee's attention. The second thing I wanted to talk about that was mentioned was regarding the information technology upgrade. We have very much a legacy system that, in a lot of ways, there's an urgency for us to get that replaced and to get that done this year. Just from the briefings that I've gotten, a lot of it's vulnerable to security breaches and incidences, I believe is the term that we use, and that impacts our insurance division and other aspects of the agency. So we are committed more than ever to getting that done this year. It's dragged on a little bit, but we're going to get that done. We're working with DoIT closely, and we're going to do it. So that wasn't as funny as I thought it was going to be, but anyway, yes. And Mr. Frank also noted that for insurance premiums are going to increase by $1 million, or projected to, for fiscal year 2023. That's happened before, and quite frankly, it's just we're in a hard market. It's hard to get coverage in these markets based upon the losses that the state has incurred, and that $1 million will keep us at the recommended actuarial level. So that's where we are with that. On, I guess, a more positive note, the State Treasurer's Office investment portfolio performed better than the average 90-day U.S. Treasury bill rate for 10 of the last 11 years. I don't know what happened that 1 year, but for 10 of the last year, we're doing well. In my conversations also with the rating agencies, which has been quite interesting. I'm sure you all are more familiar with that. I just wanted to note that that the state, in no small part based upon this committee, the House committee, we've been well complimented, if you will, by the rating agencies for our management practices. They reference the Capital Debt Affordability Committee. They reference the Board of Revenue Estimates. Our ability to react to situations as they arise. And, while they have raised some concerns about our pension and debt, they are comfortable with what giving Maryland a AAA bond rating, in no small part due to the management practices that that the General Assembly has operated under. So I just wanted to pass along that to I guess to congratulate you all for all that you do. And if there are any questions, please let me know.
Any questions or comments from the committee? I'm just happy that you're there, and want to see you be successful, and we just look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I enjoyed certainly working with you in my other capacity, and to you and all the members of the committee. If you have any questions at any time, day or night, middle of the night, whatever, Sissy is available for you to take it.
I was already starting to speed dial.
I will give you her number, and you can call her at any time.
I guess that's the sign of a good leader, to
He's
pass that along
sharing.
to someone else.
He is
Yeah,
sharing.
That's good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, next we have the Department of Commerce. And we have a secretary that's been here and gone, and been here and gone, and he's here. That's, he just keeps showing up. That's right. Okay, Emily Haskell is the analyst on this. And then we'll have some comments from Secretary Gill and others that have joined him. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Emily Haskell, and I'll be presenting the analysis for the Department of Commerce. In the budget summary on page 1, you can see that Commerce provided a significant amount of COVID-19 relief in fiscal 2021, and then from fiscal 2022 to the fiscal 2023 allowance, Commerce's budget increases by 10% to $190 million. General funds increased by nearly $33 million, mostly due to the More Jobs for Marylanders program, which I'll discuss later. But there are also significant increases for tourism grants, a grant to the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, and some new programs, such as $5 million for a nonprofit shared services support program, as well as $1 million for a new manufacturing modernization pilot. The small sliver of COVID-19 relief you see in fiscal 2022 is $5 million from the American Rescue Plan for a telework grant program. And this program continues in fiscal 2023, but is funded instead with $1 million in general funds. Exhibit 2 on page 6 shows a breakdown of the fiscal 2023 allowance. Marketing, tourism, and the arts account for 28% of the budget, as does financial assistance to businesses, while the More Jobs for Marylanders tax credit grows to 16% of the department's overall fiscal 2023 allowance. The next thing I'd like to bring to your attention relates to the Maryland State Arts Council, or Msac, formula. In general, Msac's general fund appropriation is required to grow at the same rate as the expected growth of the general fund, and the BRFA of 2017 specified that special funds Msac receives from admissions and amusement tax revenues totaling $1 million annually must also be included in the base of the calculation. DBM recently changed its interpretation of the BRFA language on how those revenues are used in the calculation. Both the old and new methods use the admissions and amusement tax revenues, but the new method then removes the $1 million in revenues after the growth calculation. Exhibit 4 shows the effects of the change in calculation method over time, with MSAC receiving about $16 million less cumulatively by fiscal 2026. When the 2017 BRFA was passed, there was a sunset of fiscal 2021 on the distribution of admissions and amusement revenues to MSAC, but Chapter 14 of 2021 extended the distribution permanently, which also made permanent the faster growth rate in the MSAC appropriation. As noted in the analysis, the General Assembly may wish to consider clarifying how these special fund revenues should be used in the calculation of the mandated general fund appropriation for MSAC. The next program I'd like to discuss is the Small Minority and Women-Owned Businesses Account, or SMWOBA. This program is funded primarily through video lottery terminal revenues, including $19.3 million from the source in fiscal 2023. These funds are loaned to businesses through 8 fund managers across the state, and the department is also planning to solicit applications for up to 3 new fund managers. As of the end of fiscal 2021, the fund managers had over $14 million combined in the checking accounts they control, as well as an additional $17 million still available for them to draw from funds held at Commerce. As the recent average of program transactions in SMWOBA is about $10.5 million annually, DLS has asked the department to comment on the capacity of the fund managers to administer the increasing level of video lottery terminal funds available for the SMWOBA program. SMWOBA also receives a small amount of funds from a couple other sources. There is a proposed deficiency in fiscal 2022 to provide $650,000 in SMWOBA for a sports wagering assistance fund. These funds are available from sports wagering licensing fees and will assist small businesses entering the sports betting market. The fiscal 2023 allowance also includes $150,000 for this purpose. Lastly, SMOBA receives funding from the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, or SEIF, including $500,000 in the fiscal 2023 allowance, per the Clean Energy Jobs Act of 2019. This funding is intended to assist small businesses in the clean energy industry, although Commerce has not used any of the SEIF funding it has received so far and doesn't plan to make use of the funds. The department noted that the requirements on this funding are too onerous for small businesses, and DLS has asked Commerce to discuss what statutory changes could be made to the program to allow the use of this funding as intended by the General Assembly. I'm going to turn now to tourism. The fiscal 2023 allowance includes an increase of $2 million, or 47%, for the Maryland Tourism Development Board to provide grants to the state's destination marketing organizations to enhance marketing efforts for tourism. Commerce was also recently awarded $9.6 million in federal funds through the American Rescue Plan for the purpose of supporting the tourism industry, and these funds have not yet been added to Commerce's budget. The department plans to use these funds to provide additional funding for the destination marketing organizations, as well as to support outdoor recreation, fund the department's scenic byways marketing promotion, and support events that draw tourism. Because of the availability of substantial additional federal funding, DLS recommends reducing the general fund appropriation for the Maryland Tourism Development Board by $2 million, which would level fund the general funds for the program at its fiscal 2022 funding level. The first and only issue in the analysis relates to the More Jobs for Marylanders program, which provides an income tax credit to expanding businesses, mostly in the manufacturing sector, for wages paid to qualified positions. New businesses in Tier 1 areas, which are certain designated counties as well as opportunity zones, are eligible for additional benefits. Under current law, companies can enroll in the program through June 1st of this year. Senate Bill 391 and House Bill 418 would extend this enrollment date by 5 years. Once enrolled, companies can claim tax credits under the program for 10 years of benefits. Exhibit 5 shows how businesses are moving through the program currently, with a total of 54 businesses having at least been issued an initial certificate for at least 1 year of benefits. The initial certificate indicates the maximum amount of credits a company can claim for a given benefit year once all the hiring requirements are met. And half of those 54 businesses that have received an initial certificate have progressed to claiming at least a final tax credit for at least 1 benefit year. And 1 business has made it as far as claiming its 3rd year of benefits. In total, $6.9 million in final tax credits have been claimed as of December since the program's inception. Exhibit 6 shows various data points of interest about the program. Some things I'll point out are that very few new businesses are taking advantage of the program, just 6 out of the 54. Also, although the program was extended during the 2019 session to non-manufacturing businesses that are located in opportunity zones, only 1 non-manufacturing business is participating in the program so far, although there are a handful more in the pipeline. Next, as you can see by the number of qualified jobs, most of the projects that businesses are claiming credits for are relatively small, in the area of 10 to 25 jobs in the first 2 years. But there are also some really big projects representing hundreds of jobs. A handful of large projects account for the vast majority of credits claimed by dollar value, with the largest 3 projects accounting for more than half of the year 1 credits issued, and Northrop Grumman alone accounting for nearly 60% of the total credits claimed so far for all benefit years. And this brings me to my next point, which is that projects typically grow quite significantly from their first year of benefits to the second year of benefits, with almost all projects that have progressed that far more than doubling in size and credit amount, and Northrop's project increasing by over 1,000%. These increases between year 1 and year 2 are important in terms of the overall fiscal impact of the program, because while there is a $9 million limit on Commerce authorizing year 1 credits, there is no limit on the amount of subsequent years' benefits. Because the program's costs are driven by large projects, and projects can grow in future years of benefits without limits, 1 or 2 large projects enrolling in the program can have significant effects on the overall cost. Lastly, on this chart at the bottom, you can see there's quite a lot of variance in the lag time between when companies are issued an initial tax credit certificate and when they finally claim that credit. The average is about a year, although in one case a company claimed the initial and final credit at the same time, and in another case a company took well over 2 years. So just keep that in mind as I move to the next chart, because this time lag is one of the reasons predicting the year-to-year costs of the program is difficult. Exhibit 7 shows the past appropriations and program activity as well as estimates going forward. The fiscal 2023 allowance includes $30 million for More Jobs for Marylanders And there is also a proposed deficiency of $7.5 million. Previously, the program has received appropriations so far totaling $20 million since fiscal 2019. The appropriation required to meet program demand is expected to grow each year, reaching $62 million in fiscal 2026. And this is under the assumption that the program is not expended. Also, as shown in the red numbers on the last line of the chart, the budget does not include enough funding either in fiscal 2023 or in the deficiency to meet Commerce's estimates of tax credit activity, falling almost $15 million short. Those estimates are a bit rough, as I mentioned, because of the difficulty in predicting the timing of projects. So the department also made a much more conservative estimate based on initial applications to date they haven't been able to fund, as well as a survey of projects. And by that more conservative estimate, the proposed deficiency for fiscal 2022 is only short of the demand by a little less than $150,000. DLS has asked Commerce to comment on how it would handle any potential shortfalls in fiscal 2022 and 2023. So that was a lot of information about the program, but the main takeaways I want to leave you with are that as the program is hitting its stride, the costs are increasing significantly. And also, those costs are hard to predict, both due to project timing, as well as the fact that large projects moving through the program have an outsized impact on the costs. Finally, this page shows the recommendation to reduce funding for the Maryland Tourism Development Board based on the availability of federal funds. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Senator Corderman.
Quick question in regards to the recommendation there at the end with the $2 million to the tourism. I know that the thought behind that was because the money's coming out from the feds. What's the timing though? I mean, if we're gonna reduce the $2 million, do we know when we're gonna get the federal money? Because we'd hate to see there a gap in between.
I think that the department will be able
Maybe
to comment
better
on the
for them. Okay,
timeline.
sure.
But it's not a reduction, it's a reduction in the allowance, but it's actually the same level of funding they've received
Right, I'm just
in the current.
concerned about the availability of funds for them to continue to do the things they do so well, so, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Senator Zucker.
Thank you very much. Saskell, thank you very much. I had a quick question. So for the, you and I spent a lot of time on this last year. So for the 2020, there's, looks like there's $12 million unencumbered, and then from 2019, 7.47 million. So how does, remind me again, so what happens with that? Does it go back into the general fund, or what happens with that again? I'm trying to remember.
It stays in the reserve fund for the More Jobs for Marylanders program. And those funds, while they were unencumbered back in 2019 and 2020, that's because the program took a little while to get started up. So now those funds have been encumbered by this point.
So is that encumbered, and that's where we get the 2021, or can that fill some of the gaps in the out years?
The gaps are already, those funds are already encumbered, so.
Oh, I see, okay.
So the gap is after
okay.
those encumbrances.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I really am glad to be back.
I know you are.
Thank you. And so Madam Chair and committee members, thank you for allowing us to be here with you today. And I have Team Commerce, my safety net, Team Commerce are all around me, and Friends of Commerce, so we'll be able to thoroughly and effectively answer any questions that might come up as we go through this. So thank you. I'm Mike Gill. This is my second act, and I think the probability is high. It's my last act. I think.
The closing act, is it?
Closing act. But there's no question, I am addicted to the word yes, so I'm not really sure what that means. But thank you. And I did one very quick comment, and then I will address just at a macro level, commerce-related budget items. But I'm so impressed every time I think about this. But during the height of the pandemic, Commerce processed approximately $450 million of grants that went out to businesses throughout the state of Maryland, every corner of the state. And every time I think of that, it makes me pause. So to Kelly and my predecessor Kelly and the team, many of these folks right here spent those hours at their kitchen tables and everywhere else just doing what you have to do. And at the same time, as maybe you'll hear in some of my comments, the momentum was kept relative to business opportunities in the marketplace. So really impressive. Our proposed budget, $190 million, I think is just wonderful. $122 million in general funds, $64 million in special funds, $4 million in federal funds. We have 188 permanent positions, or as I like to say, team members at the Department of Commerce. And I think, as I recall, that number was probably, I feel like it was something like 203 or 205 or whatever 3 years ago. So I would call it efficient and effective. But that allows us, the 190 million plus the team members allows us to continue the work that we do. And I just want to highlight some of the areas. Attracting businesses, $17.5 million for Advantage Maryland, or what we've always known as MEDAF. When I did come into the job, First Act, I thought, can we, do we always have to use acronyms? So everybody did know MEDAF, but I said, Advantage Maryland has kind of a nice sound to it. So Advantage Maryland and MEDAF are one and the same. And that's probably, to this day, it's still probably our most effective program. It's been around for 23 years, MEDAF. $30 million for MJM tax credit reserves. I mean, what I learned, First Act, what I've learned since, manufacturing jobs have grown significantly in Maryland, probably by as much as 30% from where they had been previously. Manufacturing jobs, on average, pay 30% more in wages. And the good news is for a place like Maryland, because we're not into widgets, we're into advanced manufacturing, 4.0. These are high-paying jobs versus minimum wage and things of that nature. So the return associated with manufacturing work in MJM is very, very solid. Our pipeline is strong. We have over 33 companies in our pipeline who have put in requests for MJM support. And of those, I think 10 or 12 are on the Eastern Shore. So that is always very positive to me because I'm a very pro-rural Maryland person, and when I can say that, it feels good that so many of those are on the Eastern Shore. And the pipeline represents about 11,000 potential new jobs and nearly $4.5 billion in potential capital investment. But those MJM opportunities are throughout the entire state of Maryland. Small business support, always very proud of this. Just one of those things I learned 7 years ago about what we do at Commerce. $5.4 million for the Maryland Small Business Development, MSBDFA, as we know it. And my buddy Stanley's here, and for a lot of years now, Stanley has been point and run a great program. So MSBDFA continues to be a workhorse for those businesses that are typically the most challenged in being able to get traditional financing, and that's a good thing. Estimated $20 million for the small minority women-owned businesses with that acronym SWMOBA, and I probably can't say it correctly even if I didn't have a mask on. So maybe we'll go to work on coming up with a simpler name to go along with that one. But that's a good one. I mean, the amount of money into it is as a function of lottery, and as lottery grows, so does the amount of money available for that. That has multiple fund managers, that program. And but again, it's focused on many of the same profile of clients as MSBDFA. Very, very critical program for small businesses. Key industry sectors. Cyber, when you have an NSA with 32,000 plus employees, and I used to say ACWAN, I'd say that Maryland is the cyber leader in the country. And then I changed it, and I said, well, I guess if we're number one in the country, I guess we're probably in the world. So why not? Until somebody says, I think you're wrong, we're number one. But cyber continues to be an important sector of our Maryland economy. Life sciences, not the 270 corridor, Bayview, Baltimore, Frederick, Maryland with manufacturing. It just continues to expand life sciences. They want to be here. The life science companies want to be here. Biotech investment tax incentive, still a high demand program, $12 million. We've had it for a number of years now. and it supports jobs, it supports companies who have really long-term cycles given either pharma or those areas that just require more funding over multiple years. $1 million for Maryland Modernization Program provides grants to companies for Industry 4.0 technology. I mean, that buzzword, I think, started maybe 5-6 years ago, 4.0. To me, it's sort of, if I had to simplify 4.0, it really is to enhance and accelerate the use of technology in manufacturing processes, continue to move away from assembly lines and things that we think of. So it's very advanced in that nature. Let me comment on tourism, film, and the arts. The FY23 budget continues to support tourism, film, and the arts. $17.7 million for tourism, including an increase of $2 million for the Maryland Tourism Development Board. Nearly $29 million for the Maryland State Arts Council. And Steve, I guess today, and Nick, today was the Arts Day? Yeah, so it was a little different like it was last year, the year before, but it was Arts Day today, and I love the arts and everything about it. DLS has recommended a cut in the tourism funding. It's one where I have to just strongly take a disagreement on that. If there's one thing I observed quickly when I did my math, when I came in for First Act, is from a return on investment, if I lined up all the programs we have at Commerce, and I tried to say, now which one gives us the best return on the dollar? Tourism is like here, and everything else is very good, but tourism's there. So when I hear the word cutting, it just, I think, huh? And besides that, tourism just is, it's another one of those important programs, and it's too light to call it a program, it's a culture, that is tremendously important to the rural parts of Maryland. I mean, as a percentage of their monies available to do what they do in the 15 counties we call rural, tourism makes up a bigger part than we would see in some of the other counties. Wrapping it up, as when the governor reached out to me to say, think about coming back, he said we came in together, why don't we go out together? The 7 years so far has just been tremendous from a standpoint of economic impact, even through the pandemic across all measurements. The budget is a good budget. No complaints here about the monies available for us to do what we do. And I just encourage, Madam Chair, you and your team and others to support the budget and for 2023 Commerce.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
I have one question. If I am a new business that has just gotten started up, how do I know about more jobs for Marylanders income tax credit? I'm looking at the on page 15 where it talks about new businesses, 6 out of 54 businesses that have received an initial certificate.
Yeah.
And non-manufacturing, 1 out of 54. I'm just wondering how would they know about it?
Well, I mean, I've got a thought, but Heather Graham, who plays an important role, Assistant Secretary of Commerce and longtime veteran of Commerce. Heather, please give your thoughts.
You have thoughts first?
No, you go first.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. So when we think about new versus existing businesses, we're really talking about from an attraction perspective, companies out of state that are looking to locate in Maryland. And of course, those companies are working very closely with our attraction team, with site selectors and consultants from around the country doing their evaluations. So in the existing businesses, it's our regional team that's out there really talking with those existing businesses about their expansion opportunities and taking advantage of those programs. So it's not as much new startups here in Maryland. They would be considered existing businesses.
Okay.
I hope that helps answer the question.
Yep. Senator Elfreth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 questions, but first of all, it's so good to see Secretary Gill back. So,
Thanks, Senator.
Mr. Secretary, one question on the arts funding. I think it's something, when we talk about return on investment, we talk about a fund that really impacts small businesses across the state.
Yes.
Do we know what shifted in DBM for them to reinterpret the formula?
I don't. Does anyone want to step up and take a shot at that?
We did get an explanation as to why.
we'll follow up with them and find out.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
No, I don't know the answer to that question. I said we'll follow up.
Okay, okay. I appreciate that. Because I think it's certainly the legislature's intent to your point, continue to support a statewide program that touches tens of thousands of Marylanders. So it's a priority for us.
You know, and Senator, the arts, I don't think we take it lightly how strong we are in the arts as a state. But if we went to most other states in the country and saw what little that they're doing relative to the arts, we'd be shocked. We'd say, how lucky are we? The fact that we hold it sacred and that we continue to support it. But I've just seen how it is in other places.
We're all very proud. Second question, it's a bit of a curveball. I hope you'll forgive me for past history. But Secretary Gill and I served on the Board of Regents together over a decade ago.
And how about I'm back on it again?
And I appreciate you talked in your presentation a lot about the workforce development needs that you're seeing on the horizon and how you can attract those businesses to Maryland. And in the revision of the Board of Regents a couple years back, we put a representative from Commerce on the board for directly that reason. How do we better connect higher ed to workforce development needs and trends? How is that going? How are you advising the board? And any support that we can provide in that effort would be wonderful to hear.
Well, quick comments, Senator, and then we can, because we're going to have a chance to catch up with each other soon. The Commerce Subcabinet that we created back in January of 2015, which we've expanded. In the beginning, it was workforce development, job creation, and customer service. We have regional resource groups now that make up a big part of it. And I'd say we had our first meeting yesterday since I've been back, and the intensity associated with workforce development activities is much broader than it ever was back in 3+ years ago when I was here. From a standpoint of whether it's by sector, relative to higher education, whether it could be associated with the county's work in workforce development. What we're trying to do a better job of is collaboration, because we don't lack ideas and programs and resources, but we sure as heck, I mean, it'd be like an orchestra without a maestro, where everybody's real talented and they know how to play their individual instruments. But if they could just play them together more, we could leverage all these resources. So from that standpoint, I'm just getting back into it. I think a lot of work has been done, a lot. But it's one of those things, workforce development, I've said it earlier today a couple times to some folks, you got to do it every day as if it's the first day. Mm-hmm. Every day. The moment you even back off a little bit relative to workforce, you'll drift back so far, and then you got to recover all that ground you gave up. So from that standpoint, I'm into it, and I'm anxious to be back at the Regents at least for the next year, and just keep the momentum going. And whoever's in the big chair next year, then hand off a program that hopefully will be strong enough that person will say, well, I can check that box because I got a good program to work with, as opposed to blow it up and start again. So maybe not a great answer, but that's...
We can chat. I appreciate your focus on that collaboration. That was certainly our intent with that bill. And so we can connect higher ed with workforce trends, and I appreciate you taking it so seriously. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you guys once again for the presentation. I appreciate that. I wanted to touch on the more jobs for Marylanders, just like the chair did as well. And first off, I want to say thank you. Washington County has seen tremendous success from the more jobs for Marylanders. However, at the same time, there is a concern when we look at that holistically throughout the state. When on that same page 15, you have 87% of the dollar value going to our tier 2s. Just trying to find out a way, and we don't have to come up with the answer today, and just the concern is to continue to incentivize the tier 1 areas. Because again, Washington County is doing great. So I speak more so for the senior senator from Washington County, who represents also Allegheny and Garrett, as well as my friends on the shore, and those other tier 1 locations that haven't had as much success. Your office was generous enough to give us some information, I know, from the bill for the expansion of all the different tiers and who has and who has not gotten their final certificates. And I think over half of the tier 1s haven't gotten a final certificate. So just trying to figure out ways of how we can incentivize that to really make it more valid for Marylanders, all Marylanders, and not just certain parts, especially, no disrespect to the tier 2s, but we really want to help some of our tier 1 communities, especially some of those more rural areas. So just trying to figure out ways we can collaborate that in the future would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and we'll take that under.
Sure.
We've got,
Okay.
but yeah, without it being an excuse, I do think that the pandemic probably had some disruption relative to new business focus and things of that nature. I mean, we're starting to see now, which isn't reflected in a lot of these numbers, we're starting to see the pipeline that has increased significantly of the tier 1 type activity, things of that nature. So that's very encouraging.
Yeah, I hope we could have a conversation not only with the committee here, but the broader committee with the expansion of the things you talk about, the cybersecurity, the life sciences, the biotech. Our economies, especially in the rural areas, have changed. Right, wrong, or different, they've changed. We're going away from some of our fossil fuels that were available out there. We need to regenerate and reinvent those economies.
Yeah.
And we see this being a big way to do it, and with your assistance and just trying to figure out ways we can do that, collaboratively. So
Well, I look forward to more discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Secretary.
Yep.
Okay, any more comments? I think that's it. You're
Thank
in good
you.
shape. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, good to
And
see
I
everyone.
really am glad you're back.
Thanks.
Appreciate the work that Commerce and the Maryland State Arts Council has done during the pandemic, especially the Maryland State Arts Council and their staff. They've pushed out over almost $12 million in emergency fund. I think it totaled about a little over 1,600 grants to organizations and artists. That was so critical at this juncture to help our sector survive, because we've been devastated by the pandemic. So I am thankful for that. But I'm also here today to provide a voice for thousands of arts and concerned arts constituents across Maryland. And to that end, I respectfully ask this committee to reject the governor's proposed State Arts Council budget for fiscal year 2023. As stated by the analysis, DBM's new funding interpretation lowers the State Arts Council's appropriation drastically when you look over the compound over the next 5 years and further. And I guess my concern is, and the senator asked about this, we've seen DBM do this year after year. And we've tried to codify it in the law, if it's a miscalculation or if it's something that needs clarification. We feel like we as advocates have worked with the General Assembly numerous times to clear that. And so we worked with all of you. We worked on this investment. So Chapter 145 in 2016, we passed that law. The BRFA in 2017, we passed that law. We codified the law further in Chapter 14 in 2021. The General Assembly passed all three of those with bipartisan support, and when interpreted together, the law is clear that the Arts Council mandated formula must include $1 million from the admissions and amusement tax, known as the Preservation for the Cultural Arts, But it does not anywhere in those laws state that it should at any time be removed. That $1 million, there's no removal. There's nothing that says, clearly states that that should be taken out of the calculation, at least in our interpretation and in all the laws that we've passed with the General Assembly over half a decade. So again, we feel that the General Assembly was clear and voiced their absolute support across 3 legislative sessions as to how the Arts Council should be funded. And given the extreme economic challenges suffered by the arts sector from this once-in-a-generation pandemic, we must continue to invest and support our incredible arts organizations all across Maryland. Now is just not the time to reduce funding. So with that said, I respectfully ask this committee to continue their steadfast support of the arts and reject the governor's proposed appropriation and instead fully fund the Maryland State Arts Council at the mandated level of $29.8 million.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris Reel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Chris Reel. Quick backstory, when I graduated from college more than 20 years ago, I couldn't decide whether I wanted to be a teacher, an entrepreneur, a writer, or an entertainer. And then almost by accident, I found a path that allowed me to do all of the above, and that path was a career in tourism. And I'm here today on behalf of this industry that I love, as a member of the Maryland Tourism Development Board, the chair of the Maryland Tourism Coalition, and a small business owner, asking you to support the governor's recommended budgets for the Maryland Tourism Development Board and the Office of Tourism Development. Personally, I own a company called Rent-A-Tour, and my job is to share stories of our amazing state with visitors from all over the world. My customers include groups of all shapes and sizes, school field trips, corporate events, doesn't matter. I love my job, and I really can't imagine doing anything else. But as we all know, 2020, 2021, and so far even 2022 have been exceedingly challenging for this industry. The pandemic brought travel of all kinds, business and leisure, to a grinding halt, and many of the small businesses like mine, which, by the way, make up more than 90% of Maryland's tourism industry, have only managed to survive because of assistance from local, state, and federal government, so thank you for that. We've made incredible progress, but the pace of recovery in our industry remains very slow, and small businesses like mine simply don't have the marketing dollars to reach potential visitors from outside of our region. And that's why it's more important than ever to make sure that the Office of Tourism Development and all of the DMOs statewide have the resources that they need to market Maryland as the world-class destination that we all know it is, inviting visitors to patronize our businesses from Western Maryland to the Eastern Shore and everywhere in between, Capital Region, my city of Baltimore. And when those guests come and spend the night in a hotel or a bed and breakfast, when they eat in a restaurant, when they take a tour, when they visit our museums and our cultural institutions, and they shop at our boutiques and stores, they're helping fuel the economic recovery, not just of our industry, but really of the entire state. They're generating tax revenue, they're supporting thousands of good jobs, all while making their memories here in Maryland, as opposed to Virginia or Pennsylvania. So your continued investment in tourism is not only greatly appreciated, but it also makes good fiscal sense, because data indicate that for every dollar spent on promotion, marketing, and advertising, Maryland realizes roughly $31 in visitor spending. And that tax revenue generated by visitors can be used to help fund other important priorities in our state. I know our industry is full of tough, resilient individuals. We're all dedicated to telling Maryland's remarkable stories and committed to ensuring that the visitor experience is a good one, an unforgettable one, but we can't do it alone. So again, I respectfully request that you approve the governor's recommended budgets for the Tourism Development Board, the Office of Tourism Development, so that tourism and hospitality continue to be among the state's most important drivers of economic success. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Ash, so nice to see you.
Oh, it's wonderful to see you all, and it's great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair King and members of the subcommittee. I am the National Director of the Veteran Institute for Procurement, or as we like to refer to it, VIP. VIP is supported by the Montgomery County Chamber Community Foundation, and I serve as its president. VIP trains service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses on how to accelerate their success in the federal marketplace. And since 2009, we have graduated nearly 500 Maryland veteran-owned small businesses. And I am here today to testify in support of the fiscal year 2023 budget request for the Department of Commerce, and to request that you also restore our funding that was reduced during the pandemic. The 10% cut has been extremely difficult these past 2 years for our small organization. And we may be small, but boy, are we mighty. And I'm so excited to share some incredible numbers with you today. Since 2009, as I mentioned, we've graduated 500, nearly 500 companies, and they have won over $4 billion in prime awards with the federal government. Those are Maryland companies. Since 2014, since we started receiving money from the state of Maryland, 27 of those companies have made the Inc. 5000 list right here in Maryland. 8 of them this year alone, and today you'll hear from one of those 8. We have those 62 Maryland companies, veteran-owned companies, waiting to take the program, and I only have Maryland funding that will support 40 of them. I wonder how many of them could be on the Inc. 5000 list. VIP is the best investment you can make. It adds significant value to the veteran business community and to the Maryland economy. Please consider continued funding for the VIP program. I want to thank you, and it is now really my honor and pleasure to introduce you to Ms. Deidre Windsor, who is President and CEO of the Windsor Group, a veteran, a women-owned small business right here in Maryland, and an Inc. 5000 winner this year.
Very good. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Chair King and members of the subcommittee, I am Deirdre Windsor, owner and CEO of Windsor Group Llc based in Bethesda, Maryland. I'm a retired U.S. Army officer after having served 22 years of active duty and a former career member of the federal government Senior Executive Service. I'm here today to testify in support of the fiscal year 2023 budget request for the Department of Commerce. The department's budget provides support for nonprofits like the Montgomery County Chamber Foundation's Veteran Institute for Procurement program, a program through which Windsor Group has gained competitive advantage. Windsor Group LLC is a Maryland-based woman, minority, and service-disabled veteran-owned small business providing professional services and business solutions to both federal government and commercial entities. Windsor Group supports its clients in the areas of staff augmentation, project and program management, IT support, and training and development. Windsor Group is a Small Business Administration 8A Business Development Program participant and a GSA Multiple Award Schedule contract holder. Our home office is in Bethesda, Maryland, which we recently moved to back in November. We had previously been in Chevy Chase for about 10 years. While Windsor Group was established and registered in 2014 in the state of Maryland, we opened for business in earnest in 2017. Since that time, and due to the hard work and dedication of our great employees, we've seen exponential growth, primarily in our federal government practice. In 2021, Windsor Group debuted at number 191 on the Inc. 5000 list of the nation's fastest growing private companies, and just this week was named to the 5th annual Vet 100 list, which celebrates the top 100 veteran-owned and operated businesses from the annual Inc. 5000 rankings. And I'd like to add, Barbara, didn't mention this, but one of the VIP graduates also was just listed as number 2 on the largest veteran-owned companies in the nation.
Oh, go ahead.
This is just the technology.
And they're Maryland.
Yeah, they're Maryland,
Oh,
yes.
you can't make this up.
Okay, I lost my place. Okay, and so the Vet 100 list, which celebrates the top 100 veteran-owned and operated business from the annual Inc. 5000 rankings. While I am very proud of these achievements, the thing that brings me the greatest joy is the knowledge that 10% of our employees purchased new homes in the past 12 months. And all were able to sustain themselves through the pandemic. Further, our growth positioned us to give back to our community in a meaningful way to organizations like the VIP program, or rather the Montgomery County Chamber Foundation and also Bethesda Cares. Windsor Group graduated from the VIP program on October 5th, 2017, and from VIP Grow program on January 23, 2020. VIP has been a game changer for Windsor Group in that the program has provided Windsor with several competitive advantages, including the opportunity to accelerate growth and build relationships with prime contractors and federal agencies, a network of over 1,800 successful nationwide graduates, comprehensive training and instruction by subject matter experts providing best business practices and strategies. I strongly believe the VIP program adds significant value to the veteran business community and the Maryland economy. I respectfully ask that the committee consider continued funding of the VIP program. Thank you for your time today, Madam Chair and the committee.
Thank you very much. Thank you for what you do. I think we have one last person to speak this afternoon, Anthony Williams.
Madam Chair, Anthony is our business partner. He actually meant to sign up Stanley Tucker and myself.
Okay, we'll take it. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Stanley Tucker, and I'm president of the Meridian Management Group, where we manage several funds for the Department of Commerce. To my left is my CFO, Tim Smoot, who's here to testify as well. And then we have one of our clients here to testify, Ms. Williams. Again, my name is Stanley Tucker. I'm president of Meridian Management Group, and thank you for this opportunity to be here to support the Commerce FY23 operating budget, which includes funding for the Maryland Small Business Development Financing Authority. Meridian Management Group, we were formed in 1995 as a private for-profit fund development management firm that particularly expertise investing in small minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. We manage several other funds for the Department of Commerce. The Maryland Small Business Development Financing Authority, the Ms. Bitford COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund, which was very successful. We manage a portion of the Invest Maryland Venture Capital Program and the Maryland Casino Business Investments Fund, which is one of the video lottery terminal funds administered by the Department of Commerce. Just a brief background on Ms. Bitford. It was created in 1978 to provide financing for small minority and women-owned businesses that really were not able to obtain financing from conventional financial institutions. The program, actually, we have 4 components. We call it a contract financing program, where if someone obtained a government or a contract, we can help them with working capital financing. We can provide guarantees to banks. We can provide letters of credit. We can also provide something unique from a state, and that is contract surety bonds, which is very, very important for small minority and women-owned business to obtain to participate in a huge contracting industry, particularly with Build Back Better coming down the pike. There'll be a lot of opportunities for small minority and women-owned businesses. And we also provide subordinated debt and equity financing. So we say when someone walks into our door, depending on which window or windows we could take them through, we can birth a company, and we could stay with them through a strategic exit, if you will, including going public. And we've done that several times over the years. We are unique in the country where we have these various components under one umbrella where we can provide this kind of continuing financing as the company grows. As we all know, there's a continuing need of financing for small minority and women-owned businesses, and our mantra is capitalism without capital does not work. And so we've been doing this quite a while. We appreciated that Secretary is back a second round, Mr. Gill. He's been very supportive of us over years, and we really appreciate his support. I'm going to turn it over to my CFO, Tim Smoot, who will share some information about our various programs. Also, there have been numerous studies, both national, international, larger firms, smaller firms, continue to talk about the lack of access to capital for small, minority, and women-owned businesses. Mr. Smoot.
Thank you, Madam Chair, subcommittee members. We appreciate your time and attention, and I'll be brief. Just a little bit about some of the performance that we've had in 2021. We provided $5.6 million in financing with an average of about $400,000 per firm. It ranged from anywhere from $50,000 to $1 million. So we take care of, a lot of different size businesses. You mentioned startups, Madam Chair. We assist startup operations as well and expansion businesses. These financing created 69 jobs and retained 175 jobs during the fiscal year. Over the 5-year period, 2017 to 2021, we provided almost $32 million in financing with an average of $300,000, with the smallest loan being $35,000. We created 709 jobs and retained 1,120 jobs. The loan loss rate, I want to always mention, is about 5.8%, which is a little above what goes on in the banking industry. So we've done pretty well. Just to note, after the Great Recession, the loan loss rate went up to about 12% or so because a lot of businesses just didn't make it through. They didn't get the help that the federal government and the state provided during COVID. So there was a lot more deterioration. The other want to just mention as well, in terms of, we're sort of the MBE arm, and we provided 71% of the financing went to MBEs, and 30% went to women-owned businesses.
Great.
Just want to briefly mention the General Assembly and the Governor's Office and the Department provided Ms. Bifford with $10 million in COVID emergency relief money, and we helped 135 businesses with those funds, and almost $5.8 million was converted to grants, which helped tremendously with those businesses. And MBEs received 71% of those funds, and 45% went to women-owned businesses. So we think we did a pretty good job of getting balance in the marketplace. And I'd like to just briefly introduce Antoinette Williams, who's one of our portfolio company CEOs.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair and committee members. Ironically, I sit here today having participated in both of these programs. What a wonderful state we live in. What a wonderful state to be a minority-owned, woman-owned business owner in. Maryland does great things for businesses. When I came to this firm to look at funding, we had just received funding options. We had just received our first contract. And we were really struggling trying to figure out how to very quickly get access to capital, access to contract funding to pay employees. And we are a woman-owned, minority-owned MDOT-MBE, so we are certified in the state of Maryland, as well as in the city of Baltimore. We also are a federal contractor. We are an 8A firm. We are also a hub zone firm with a commitment to providing economic and employment opportunity in certain regions in Maryland with a number of federal contract vehicles. And here I sit, starting a company. I own a home. I've got lenders on both sides of me, either through owning my home or through other stuff, right, credit cards. And getting access to capital even when you have income and even when you have, credit is not as easy to do when you talk about starting a business. It's pretty complicated, right? And I needed that access to that capital pretty quickly or I was going to lose this contract. And so I came to MMG for assistance. I found out about their program through attendance at a state venue for small businesses. And they were very quickly, and this is the key here, quick access to capital. They were very quickly able to give me access to what I needed to make my payroll and to grow with me. And so I was able to demonstrate to the government as well as to employees that I could pay you. Day one, right, having been awarded these contracts. And so it's been a wonderful experience. I do need to say, though, again, that, access to capital is not an easy thing. It is definitely not an easy thing, and this program needs to continue to be funded to support those of us that are trying to employ in Maryland, stay in Maryland. It's not an easy tax state to be in, right, and grow our businesses until we get to the point where we can launch, where we can truly launch and then start, moving to vendors or to lenders for more assistance.
Okay, thank you very much. Senator Ellsworth.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Mr. Tucker, so good to see you.
Yes.
Thank you for all you do. This program is essential to all of our districts, and mine included, so thank you. And this is not meant as a criticism, I'm curious based on the analysis. And I realize you received an extra injection with the Relief Act last year, but with, the analysis states that there's about 14.3 million combined in checking accounts at the end of 2021, and an additional 17 million in commerce. So I feel like, how do we get the money out faster or more, or is there anything more you need from us, considering how critical this is to our economy?
Yes, the marketing dollars always helps, but we are coordinating efforts with the department on some initiatives to market, and particularly in Western Maryland, the shore, and Southern Maryland, where we're not as strong there. And to some extent, I can only speak for the casino fund because we don't have access to other information, but a number of companies pay their loans back from some of the relief money they got. But, now that sort of that's over, folks are coming back in. And for us, for example, I think at the end of the fiscal year, we had about $3.2 million, and we're getting ready to close $1.5 million. So the activity is starting to pick up again through that, because everyone, now that the free money is not available, they're coming to alternative sources. So, but yeah, the marketing dollars, always helps, and it would certainly help us. But we are coordinating efforts, and we have our own initiative in MMG that is formulating right now, and to begin right around the end of spring for new marketing initiatives.
Okay, that's one of the chair mentioned. Our programs are only as good as people know about them, and so
Yes, absolutely.
And so that marketing sounds essential. Thank you.
Okay, that looks like we're wrapping it up.
Thank you
very
all.
much. Thank
We
you for
appreciate
being
you.
here.
Appreciate the time.